G'day warbanders, and welcome back to another video on Grand Tactician Napoleonic Wars. And we got a new snippet of gameplay, a unit preview of Line Infantry, which is very cool. We have Austrians, we have French, and very interested to get into it. And yeah, Grand Tactician, basically a better version of the Total War. We want to get a grand campaign of Europe, and yeah, we're going to look at the infantry and the gameplay here, and it's going to give you my thoughts. If you haven't watched the video, please go watch it. It's going to be a breakdown video about this. But yeah, let's get straight into it. It already looks pretty beautiful. Now this is interesting because we have the more revolutionary troops of France. So this is the earlier type of infantry. It's nice to see that in the game with the French infantry being different. So we're not going to get, the same uniform. It's going to be from Italy to 1815, which is kind of neat. As you can see, the revolutionary troops, they're a bit more tacky compared to their more grand army counterparts in later periods. And this is cool. So we have different types of formations. This is a French demi brigade, which is unique to the French. We have line infantry, a fusilier battalion. Seems to be in column. And also we have different types of formations. So we have line, maneuver column, open order, attack column, square, battlefield column, and road column. Wow, so we have two different types of columns, which is quite kind of neat. And this is way more formations than Grand Tactician Civil War or Napoleon Total War. And interestingly, we can tell a line formation, a regular line formation, to go into open order. And yeah, that's kind of interesting. Tell me guys in the comments, could a normal line infantry regiment in the revolutionary period, could they go into all open order? Which is kind of, it's very interesting. We also have our stats here, which are poured over from Grand Tactician Civil War, which, adds some more strategy to the battles, because if you compare it to Total War, you only have two stats to worry about, really, like experience. You have a couple stats, but not as many as Grand Tactician. So we have morale, cohesion, fatigue, training. So the training, how tired they get, how cohesive they are in formation, and of course morale, which is a huge part, which is a huge thing in Napoleonic warfare. Again, from the top of my head, Total War only has morale, ammunition, I think. What else? They don't have a training stat at all. I think they have experience. That sort of represents experience. So there is some sort of overlap, but I think Grand Tactician has a more modeling going on with the stats there. They also have strength, they have idle. I love the UI. The UI is way more better than Grand Tactician Civil War, which is more cleaner. And yeah, we've got different formations. Square, it's beautiful. Look at that. Oh, look at that square. It's so beautiful with the sergeants inside. You have the musicians, the officers forming their little thing in the middle with the standard. Way more accurate square. Because in other games, they just don't represent the middle bit at all. At all. It's really, really weird. And we have a marching column, I think, and this one, or attack column. I can't tell which one. Very important for Napoleonic French soldiers. Because the entire doctrine in this period really is, the theory of warfare is leaning towards we have to get in there fast with bayonets, and the musketry is it's setting up for the battle. It's not going to be the decisive element. That's why the French use a lot of attack columns, is because they're not relying on sitting there and shooting a lot like the British are. Like the British still practice, bayonet charges, but still they were more accurate, more elite. But in this case, it's kind of interesting to see we get to see the attack columns used historically. It's kind of cool. We also have road column. Again, a lot of people don't know this, but roads are really important for 18th century warfare. And a lot of games, they neglect this element of warfare entirely, especially Total War. There's only in mods where roads are important. And what happens before a battle is that these armies will march on the roads, and then if they get whiff of where the enemy is, or their scouts, their cavalry scouts, or their pickets, they find out where the enemy is, they march down the roads. And, roads are sort of the aspect that you want to fight over, because they provide you logistics. It's easy to traverse with your baggage trains. There's a whole thing going on there. And a lot of games just completely ignore it for some strange reason. And yeah, they form their battle line as they get closer. So they form out of column into line or attack column, whichever is preferred of the army of the time. So I hope, yeah, roads are going to be super important in this game. Super important, they have to be. Because yeah, if you go off road with a 18th century army, you're going to have broken ground sometimes. The terrain might be uneven for your guns, so your artillery. So that's another reason why armies prefer to march along roads. Shocking, I know, but some games don't show that. And this is kind of cool. We can tell our entire line infantry here to go in open order, which is kind of neat. So we can have our skirmishes. Now, again, do the French not have dedicated skirmishing units? I'm not sure. I know the voltigeurs, I don't know how to say that. But yeah, interestingly, there's no skirmishes here, like dedicated skirmishes. So you can tell line formations to go in open order, which is kind of cool. But then you can detach skirmishes. So why would you detach skirmishes when you can just tell your entire formation to go open order? I assume that maybe you want to keep the line formation in reserve while you send out some skirmishes. Again, very similar to Grand Tactician Civil War, and this is very nice to see. I love the use of skirmishes in Grand Tactician. I love the little officer there as well. And now this is a huge thing. A huge thing. 18th century warfare is firing by unit or division, like subunits. And you can see that there's different ranges, which is really important for ammunition usage, because if you're firing at long range, you're not going to hit as many targets. But again, there's a lot of misconceptions of muskets are inaccurate, so therefore they're useless. They're not inaccurate it's more nuanced than that. Okay, because you don't have to be precise with the musket, because the musket can go to the left, the bullet, and it can hit someone in the left rank or the right rank. It doesn't have to hit the guy that you're aiming for. It has to hit the guy on the side or behind him. That's why muskets were used a lot in this period, because it's easier to train with. You can shoot it easier. Instead of a bow, because a bow requires practice. There's a lot of elements of why they use these weapons of war. And this is beautiful. No, I don't know of any game that shows fire by subunit. And the reason why they fired like this, instead of a ripper fire fashion, is so they can keep up a constant rate of fire. Because that's very important, because if you have a line infantry right here going in for a charge, you want to keep up that rate of fire to just mow them down as they're coming in closer and closer. And that affects the morale. Having a machine gun just keeps going, of a line of death, essentially. That is very important. But of course, you can't. I wonder how the game's going to handle this. But again, as the battle unfolds, having coordinated fire gets harder and harder. You can't keep everyone firing at the same time all the time. So I wonder if they're going to model that at all. Because at the beginning of the battle, yeah, you could do these fire by division, but as I said before, as the battle goes on, it gets a bit more harder to command and control and all that, because people, both formations, they start taking casualties. It starts to mess up the order of things. I hope that's modeled in the game somewhat, but this is great to see. Awesome stuff. No other game does that. And we got fire by rank, kind of sick. See the men are dropping. Very morbid, but it's great to see. Again, people just have this misconception that muskets are useless, but they're actually pretty deadly when you're at this sort of range. A few volleys and people are dropping. You don't have to, as I said before, you don't have to hit the man straight on. You have to hit the man beside him. Oh my god, bro! They actually have the cavalry with the lances with the flags on top. I'm coming. Oh, that's so beautiful. No, the game does that really. The Napoleon Total War, they had the lances, but they don't actually have the little flags, I think, on the top like that. Oh, it's so beautiful. And they're actually the correct flags as well, like the Austrian flag there. That's so beautiful. You also have the officers trailing in the line formation. That's so cool. That's so cool, man. it's tightly packed too, like it's actual cohesive formation. Beautiful. Of course, they're going to charge into that square. I love that song. I think it's Gott and Held Kaiser. And yeah, we got the earlier Austrian army here, Italian Austrian army here. Not Italian, but you know, this is the earlier style of the Austrians. This is the more, I would say, 18th century sort of style, like earlier 18th century with this cap here. And you'll see that the Austrians sort of phase this out, this cap as well. Not sure about this one. I forget about this one. But yeah, the uniforms, they change a lot. But it's cool to see that they're modeling the different armies and how they fight as well. So you can see that the Austrians, they fight a little bit differently here. The German Fusilier Battalion. So we're dealing with German infantry, which is kind of cool. I hope to see some Hungarian soon. It's kind of cool that we have two different columns. So we have battlefield column and a road column. I don't know what battlefield column is. And interestingly, the Austrians, they don't get attack columns. They only get battlefield column. Because battlefield column is not the same as attack column. So it's kind of neat. And they also have square. But of course, the Austrians, they have a different type of square. And this is the battalion mass. So the reason why their square is different to the French is because the Austrians, they relied more on, I guess, more conscripts, way more conscripts. And those conscripts, they can't do these complicated square formations. So having a block of soldiers in an easier formation like this, the battalion mass, is really good for the Austrians. Because you don't have to give much training to them. As you can see, they have 60% training, which is probably not a lot in this game. That's what I like about Grand Tactician, is that they actually model the training of the soldiers with the stats there, which is really important. Because in Napoleonic warfare, it's all about how disciplined is the formation. Can they hold their ground? And the other factors are quite not as important, I would say. Like the different type of weapons, that's not really important. It's about how can they hold their ground? Can they not run, essentially? And can they form, formations quickly and shoot quickly? That's what Napoleonic warfare is all about. It's a game of chicken. And interestingly, the Austrians, they get to deploy these little sub-units here. The French do not. So we're going to get unique gameplay for each faction, it seems. Now, I wonder how it's going to work in the game, because imagine seeing those tiny formations out. But that's unique to the Austrians. Got a marching column there, attack column. Again, nice to see the different engagement ranges, because when you're about here, that's when it gets really deadly. You start taking around 50% casualties, I reckon. Especially by firing by subunit. Now, we haven't seen a lot of bayonet combat or melee combat, which is quite typical of this period, because usually the bayonet charge itself is more of a psychological tactic than an actual melee on melee combat, because when the attack column or French column reaches the enemy would have ran by then, and that's why I said earlier that it's very important for a formation to be disciplined, because they can actually hold their ground. But again, in most cases they would run. It depends on the contextual factors. We also have some battalion artillery here, which is quite typical of an earlier type of warfare where they have the guns pretty close to the line. And the French, I think we've seen in the earlier video, but they have a grand battery, which is quite unique to the French. Like, don't think the other armies use the grand battery. So basically you pull your guns into this grand battery of guns, and that sort of maximizes your firepower, right, on specific targets. But the idea of these battalion artillery pieces was to support the infantry, which is pretty cool to see in the game. And again, you can't do this in Napoleon Total War. They just get minced. Now, I'm not sure if that's like a single unit by itself, or if that comes with the infantry. Very cool. They fire by subunit. You can see that they fire like a bit more simpler than the French. They're firing in like half, firing half and half from the line. See that the French are running Got a cavalry charge. Haven't seen like direct melee combat yet. I want to see that. Have a town in the background. Got some dragoons, so dragoons are confirmed. They're shooting. Again, I don't think it's like fully 3D. I think it's like half 2D. So you can see the sprites there. It's a bit... It's not like fully 3D, I think. We've got 2 rank volley. 2 front ranks fire simultaneously. Yeah. Yeah, volleys, you know, more for that morale effect. And as I said before, those volleys, you can't keep that up in the heat of battle. Like, I hope that's represented eventually. And as the formations close, muskets get way more deadlier. Way more deadlier. Way more deadlier than people realize. Because again, you don't have to hit the man directly, precisely. You have to hit the man beside him. That's my phone. But yeah, very cool to see this in the game. They actually, you know, muskets are deadly in the game, which is pretty good. They're not pop guns, you know. And this is very close range. So this is where the bayonets would get in. And yeah, I can see that you could probably micro the troops to get that sweet volley in before they come in. Now, there's one detail I don't like is that they're not charging in like in a brisk pace. They seem to just be marching in pretty slowly, which I guess is good for command and control, but I would have liked them to see you go into like double speed or running a little bit. But again, it's to keep the formation. Again, that's probably correct me in the comments. Would they march into combat like that? Not sure. You see the routing as well. Very sick. And yeah, that's the video, guys. I am blown away. I am absolutely blown away. As this video says here, the level of detail is just shocking. I think this is going to dethrone Napoleon Total War. Like, sure, the individual model of the troops isn't as detailed as Napoleon Total War, but I don't really care about that, dude. I care about the large-scale combat on Napoleonic Wars, and we're going to get way more bigger formations. This is just 1 or 2 regiments fighting each other out. They haven't shown an actual battle yet. Well, they did in the last trailer, but this is more just showing the different infantry. But yeah, this is sick stuff. I want to see a bigger battle. I hope they give us more rundown of like a battle and how it happens. Haven't seen the campaign layer yet. I want to see that. Because yeah, without the campaign layer, these battles, they lose their context. But they did confirm there's going to be a campaign. A grand campaign. And I wonder if the smoke, does that affect accuracy at all? It might. Don't know. But yeah, very cool. I'm very excited for this. And this is just 2 nations. Again, I think this game is a bit too ambitious because they say they're going to cover all of Europe. Maybe they're just starting off with Italy. I think that's what's going to happen. They're starting off with just Italy, and they're going to slowly build up to all the other factions like Russia, Britain. I want to see Britain. I want to see how they perform as well. Because, you know, Britain has a more, I guess, a little more elite army with their faster shooting and their different style of warfare. I think they fire in 2 ranks instead of, what do you got here, 3 ranks. But yeah, very cool. They did have a write-up, but it's just more about the history of the combat, which is pretty accurate. Like, they've done their research a lot. I can't see anything wrong with this game. Like, the flaws are quite... I don't see many flaws. I want to see actual melee combat. Like, of course, it's rare in the Napoleonic Wars, but we want to see that. I want to see a cavalry charge. Maybe they haven't developed that yet. Because as you see, the cavalry weren't charging the square, obviously, but I want to see some melee combat. And again, I just love that they have that attention to detail, the lances, with the little flag on top. Oh my god. They actually did it. Again, there's no competition with Total War. This is going to be way better. Way better. Again, tell me you guys' thoughts about this game, about this gameplay. Do you think it's good? I think it's good. I think it's going to be amazing. It's going to be great. And yeah, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed. G'day, warbanders, and thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you want to support me, please like and subscribe and tell me your thoughts about the video. It pushes my video more into the algorithm, which is what I want, and also how you can help me the most. But if you're more inclined, you can support me through my Buy Me a Coffee link in my channel description, or by signing up for a YouTube membership where I give out custom emojis and early access to videos I'm making. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.